Hi everyone, my name is Cassie and I'm a community manager on the Google Advertiser community. Today I'm joined by one of our AdWords Top Contributors, Kim, and she's going to talk us through some overall mobile strategy, some trends, some optimization techniques, and sort of where you can get started with mobile advertising. Just want to remind everyone that this is a live event. So if you're watching this on the community, on that events page, then please go ahead and look down below. There's going to be a post or comment button, and you can add your questions there. I'll be refreshing that throughout our talk today, and at the very end, Kim and I are going to take some questions from you guys. So if you've had burning questions about mobile, please make sure to share those with us. So Kim, I'll turn it over to you. If you can introduce yourself a little bit, and we can get started.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Thank you. I am Kim Clinkenbroomer. I'm a partner and executive vice president of paid search at Philly Marketing Labs. I am also, as Cassie mentioned, a Google Top Contributor and have been so since 2006. Been working in the search industry since 1999 and specifically in paid search since the early 2000s. So I was going to be joined by my colleague and friend Tommy Sands today, but unfortunately he is not feeling well, so it's just going to be me today. So the agenda for today is we're going to talk about current mobile trends, getting started with mobile advertising, best practices, gauging performance, and then optimizing. And then if we have some time at the end, we'll do questions and answers. Okay. So what we know is that many countries, including the US, as you see here, more searches take place on mobile devices than on desktop computers. And people are in these moments where they want to know, they want to go, they want to do, they want to buy, and it's driven by intent. People have intent, they have needs, and they're going to search engines and trying to get those needs met. So when it comes to the I want to know moments, what we find is that 65% of online consumers look up information, 65% more now look up information than they did a year ago. And 66% of people turn to their phones to look up something that they would see on a TV commercial. When it comes to wanting to go, we've seen a 2 times increase in people looking for locations near them that they have interest in than they have in the past year. And 82% of smartphone users are turning to a search engine when they're looking for a local business. When it comes to I want to do, 91% of smartphone users are turning to their phones when they're trying to do a task. And over 1 million hours of content has been consumed on YouTube this past year. And when it comes to buying, 82% of smartphone users consult their phones when they're in stores trying to decide what to buy. And there's been a 29% increase in mobile conversion rates in the past year. So mobile is gaining speed, it's here to stay, and people have their phones with them all the time. So they're in those moments with their phones in their hands.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I think it's one of those things, right, where we have our phones next to ourselves like 24/7.
Yep.
So I think I've talked to advertisers before who sort of feel like mobile might not be for them, but it is one of those things where I think it can be applicable for every business. It just is like a little bit different depending on the industry that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, people sometimes will, they'll start, we talk about cross-device, conversions into cross-device actions. Yeah. So, there's a lot of times where people will start out, their journey looking for something or, wanting to go somewhere, one of these moments that they're in, they start out on their mobile device and then they finish on a desktop or vice versa. So the devices, they do play well together.
Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Mm-hmm. So where do we start? It's kind of a big topic, mobile, but I think really the best place to start is getting ready. So mobile-friendly websites are obviously very important, and I think that before you start making a major investment in mobile advertising, it makes good fiscal sense to make sure that your website's ready for the mobile traffic. So Google has a cool tool. It's a mobile-friendly website tester available at Google Developer Tools. There's a link there on the page. And basically you plunk your URL in there, and it will scan the site, and it will tell you whether or not your site is mobile friendly or not. So on the example on the left, you can see, awesome, this page is mobile friendly, and on the right, excuse me, on the left is a poor result. Basically, this site is not optimized for mobile. It'll give you reasons why. In this case, the text is too small to read, the links are too close together, and basically what Google's letting us know is that this website is not going to provide a very good user experience. But the cool thing about the tool is that it will report back, and it will also give you suggestions on how to make changes to become mobile friendly. In addition to just having a mobile friendly website, I think it's smart to also think about what kind of experience people are going to have on a mobile phone. It's a much obviously smaller screen than you're going to see on a desktop. So you're really going to want to provide a good user experience for people and make sure that your funnel is easy to navigate, and like that you would have like a clickable phone number on your website too would be a really good idea for people that are coming in on a mobile device. If your goal is to gain phone calls, of course. Measuring success is obviously very important. So I would suggest that every advertiser, regardless if you're just mobile or whatever kind of advertising that you're doing, that you link your analytics and your AdWords platforms together. So what that will do is that will allow you to filter data back and forth between those platforms. So you can import metrics from analytics into your AdWords UI, and then obviously there's a ton of data that's going to go into analytics. Search Console is also great to link, formerly Webmaster Tools, but if you can link Search Console too, there's some added benefit there. Setting up goals or conversion tracking, so when stuff's happening on your website that you want to track, that you're having successes there. If it's purchase, if it's a checkout, or it might be a form submission, things along those lines you want to track. And then identifying and tracking micro conversions, I think, is really important as well. So those could be things like someone adding a product to a shopping cart or downloading a white paper. Those are what we would call micro conversions, and that can give you a lot of information that just can help you optimize for better performance. Tracking cross-device conversions. So I mentioned that a moment ago, and that's where the journey will start with one device and maybe end with another one. So you can set up your conversion tracking in AdWords to track cross-device conversions, which I think is really important. And then SMART goals. If you have, for some reason, you can't set up tracking on your site, the analytics team has developed what they call SMART goals, and basically they're looking at performance on your website to give them basically keys to say, maybe you had a longer visitor engagement or more page views on the site, or time on site, those types of things that can identify, what they would call SMART goals. So that's something that you can enable within Google Analytics.
Yeah, I think that those are really great points, especially talking about like SMART goals and the micro conversions and the cross-device conversions, because just like from talking to folks, especially, I think one common misconception about mobile, I think it might have been true in the past, but it's definitely changing, is that people aren't going to purchase like big ticket items on their phones, right? It doesn't feel like safe. Like, for example, if I'm looking to book a flight, I might not book it on my phone. I do think that that's changing, but if that is the case for people's customers and their audience, then these kinds of conversions are where we can actually start to at least measure some sort of results with mobile, right? Because if we're not measuring anything, it gets really difficult to figure out if we're doing the right thing or not.
Yeah, it is tricky. It can be tricky. So that makes it it takes at least a little of the mystery out of it. Yeah. Okay, so another thing to do, getting started, is to make sure you're providing a really good customer journey. So you got to be there, you got to be useful, and you got to be quick. So it's kind of like, anticipating what your target audience is looking for, what search queries they're going to, maybe input into Google, and what they're expecting. Being useful is being relevant, and relevant is like, big AdWords buzzword, right? Be relevant, and that means that the ad copy that people are going to see after they've done a search query is going to be relevant to their search query, and the landing page that they're going to go to when they click on the ad, ideally, is going to be relevant to their search query. So you're building that relevance, and what we have here is we know 65% of smartphone users agree that when they're conducting a search, they're looking for relevance over, a brand name and things along those lines. They just want relevant search results, and then being quick. So, capitalizing on that, getting people, relevant information, and then be quick about it. So get people to the page that they're looking for. If they're looking for a certain product or a certain service, navigate them right to that page versus, plunking them on the home page of your website and making them dig and hunt for the information that they're looking for. So people on mobile want instant gratification. There's a lot of insight and forecasting information that's available with Keyword Planner. So as you can see here, you can get trend data month over month. It shows you what to expect as far as overall traffic and then individually mobile. And what you might find is something that you didn't expect. You may expect that you would be gaining more traffic from desktop devices, and then you plunk in your keywords and such into the Keyword Planner and find out that it's completely different. So, this is one of those great tools that you have at your fingertips. It's right within your AdWords account, so there's no reason not to use it. With the larger graphic that you see on the screen, this is a daily forecast basically, but you can see I've set it to devices, so we're looking at different device breakdowns. And what's really cool with the tool is that all of the metrics that you see across the top, or most of them, you can click right on the metric, like impressions or clicks, whatever, and the graph will update with the breakdown of different devices, and the data below will also repopulate with that information. And what's neat too is that you can, if you were thinking that you might want to add a mobile bid adjustment, so you want to maybe bid more or less for mobile devices, you can input that into the tool and it'll kind of forecast for you what you could expect with those different bid adjustments. So it takes a little bit of the guesswork out of the whole process. So I highly suggest people use it.
I love this because I think, and again, all varies like from business to business and in different industries. So I think one thing you pointed out is like this can help you take out the guesswork and at least start to do some of that testing to figure out what works for you. I think that the other really great thing here that this this tool lends itself to is a lot of times there are actually going to be separate keywords too that people are going to search for on their mobile devices versus how they're going to find your business on their desktop computers or on their tablets.
Right.
If you're out and about, then you're going to type in something different than you would when you're sitting at home on the couch, like while you're watching TV. And this can help you identify what those keywords are and figure out, okay, do I need to have a separate like mobile ad for these keywords? Do I need to be splitting them out into a different campaign? And can help you get some insights there too. So yeah, I think this is awesome.
Yeah, definitely, and yeah, I agree. I mean, it's studies show that people do their searches are much shorter on mobile devices than they are on desktops. It's just easier, So okay, so getting into some best practices here on mobile ads. A little bit about mobile ad formats. So they come in a variety of formats. On devices with full browsers, we could see text ads, image ads, but those are only going to be available, or you'll only be able to use them when you're opted into the display network. App promotion ads, and then HTML5 ads, which are pretty cool and can be built with Google's Web Designer. Again, that's display network opt-in is required there. And then there's a variety of formats that are available on apps, tablets, that you can see over there on your right. So, including video. So there's a pretty good variety of ad formats that are available. Okay, and about mobile text ads. So one of the things that Cassie mentioned is that you may want to have like a shorter search query for people that are on mobile devices, and the same goes with the ads themselves. Part of it is that People might be expecting a slightly different experience, and then the other part is obviously they're on a much smaller device. So sometimes having more concise ad copy makes more sense. And what we have available that Google's made available a while ago was mobile preferred ads. So basically what we're saying when we check this box here that you see underneath the display URLs, that we prefer this ad be shown on mobile devices over another ad that might be shown on desktop. So as you're putting your ad copy together, there's like the neat little preview on the side, so you can get an idea of what it's going to look like on a mobile device. Some best practices for creating text ads would be potentially punctuating description line 1, because what that will do is that will pull your description line up and put it right behind the headline. What you see in this example here is kind of what we're looking at underneath that blurred out area. The other thing would be to create multiple copies of an ad. So you don't really ever want to have just like one piece of ad copy running unless you just know that's your winning copy, and you can't possibly get any better than that, which is really never the case. You can always do better, right? And you should always test. So creating multiple copies of variations, I should say, of an ad, and then coming back and looking at the performance to see which one, you know, is performing better. What I'm always doing is I'm always testing. So I'm like, pause this ad and then roll out a slightly different variation and see if that gets a better click-through rate or a better conversion rate. So testing for sure. Okay, and then the same goes for extensions. There are, I think every extension except the review extensions have a mobile preferred version. So definitely there's cases where you're going to want to go with a mobile preferred version, for instance, with site links. So you can see at the top right where we have a site link that has been truncated. So it didn't fit well on a mobile device, so we wound up with ... Where on a desktop, that would be a complete site link. So here's a case where you might want to use a shorter site link for mobile than you would for desktops. Same goes for callouts. They will get truncated if they're too long, or you know, or they'll drop them. You know, so basically you can have, you know, let's say you had 3, you might only have 2 of them show up, and they may not be the 2 that you really wanted. You know, maybe the third one was really your stronger call to action. And then the same goes as well for phone numbers. So you may want to have one Google forwarding or your own phone number used as a call extension for mobile, and then another for desktop, just for tracking purposes, so that you can kind of segment that information more easily and, you know, understand your performance better. So it's as simple as just checking that box, and then, you know, you've got your mobile preferred. Okay, one thing that Google will do with mobile ads is they will dynamically optimize your ads for you. And what that means is that sometimes if Google feels that your site links or a different extension is going to perform better than your second line, your second description line, they'll bump the second line and they'll put your site link there. So there's 2 ways to avoid that. One is you can punctuate line 1, and that will basically shift it up behind the headline, and then pull line 2 up into where line 1 normally would be, and so you can wind up with basically a more complete piece of ad copy. Or you can opt out of it altogether. So there's a form link basically on the bottom of the screen there where you can opt out of this feature if you wanted to. But if you don't, you know, you really want to just take into consideration, like, if you had a complete message between lines 1 and 2, and Google was to remove line 2, you could have some really wacky looking ad copy. So something to take into consideration.
Yeah, I think this is great. And these are the like little details that I think people don't know, right? The fact that your ads on mobile can you know, optimize automatically, or the way that like site links or callouts can get stopped on mobile.
Right.
So I think the overall theme is just be as strategic as possible, right, with mobile. Once you start getting that data coming in and making sure you're considering all of these little pieces, because since mobile, the screen is so small, these things become even more important.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So, and you know, it could be, you know, misleading. You could be losing out on like a call to action or something incredibly important that you think people are seeing and they're not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Okay, and then gauging performance. So, after you've done all your hard work, how do you know what's working and what's not? Finding your device-based metrics is obviously key. You need to be able to kind of see what's going on. So basically on almost every tab, the campaign, ad groups, keywords, even search query reports, you can segment by device. And this allows you to get a breakdown of desktop, mobile, and tablet, line itemed out so that you can see which is performing or how things are performing. And here's an example of a screenshot of a campaign tab with the segmentation for device put in play. So, you can then get a deeper look into, how's my click-through rate on mobile devices? What's my position look like? Because when it's all bundled together, it's really, you don't have a lot of visibility into what's going on. And when it comes to mobile, it's like you've got like 1 to maybe 3 now ad slots, and most of the time the third one isn't. You have to scroll down. It's below the fold, if you will. So if you were to look at this segmentation and see that on mobile devices you were in position 2.5 or 3, it's going to give you some visibility into the fact that you probably want to bump your bids. I have here search impression share, which I think is an important metric to take a look at as well. So, if you see, you're losing some impression share to rank, that may make, that kind of tells you, well, either you need to work on your quality score or possibly bump your bids, and what I would normally do in that case was I would probably do both. I'd probably bump my bids right away and then go back and take a look at how I, structured those campaigns or ad groups to see if I can then, increase my quality score, and then I can come back later and decrease my bids. And then on the bottom of this screen here, this is it's the auction insights report, which is pretty cool, and I think a lot of people don't realize that you can segment here as well. And this is a nice report to look at just to understand, like, my competition, what are they doing? What does that landscape look like? Because if you can gain some of their business, or you're getting more traction or less traction than them, that's something that you might want to make adjustments for.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea to look into this and to segment by device, especially in those industries that are more competitive, where the majority of businesses are advertising online. If your competitors are not utilizing mobile, or if in fact they have sort of like a bigger share of the pie and you're not doing that much on mobile, then that can be an area where you can sort of target versus just continuing to try to increase your desktop share where things are already a little bit tight.
Right, absolutely. And I think that, mobile is like really important for that, just because there is such a little space and it's so competitive that if you see that, you don't have that visibility that your competition has, I mean, you're losing out on opportunities left and right at that point. Yeah. Okay, and then analytics. I can't tell you enough how important Google Analytics is when you're trying to, gauge your performance and optimize. It's another layer of data and metrics that you're not going to have available to you in the AdWords interface. There's a ton of great data there, but this is like data on steroids. So you've got the click-through, you sent people to the website, then what? What did they do on your website? Did they bounce? Did they look at one page or 2 pages? How much time did they spend on site? So this is where you're going to go to get that data. And including, conversion rates and everything like that. So this is, everything that you find in the AdWords side is you're going to probably find in analytics and then some. So you can segment by, demographics, everything. You could just put in a secondary dimension for mobile on basically any of those metrics. Okay, and then optimizing. I would definitely say looking at networks is important. If you're opted into everything, definitely take a look at your networks, because they're going to function much differently, than the next. So there's search partners, and then there's the display network, obviously. And they're search and partners is similar. The display network is a completely different animal. So I would definitely say take a look at your networks and see how they're functioning. You may want to have a different strategy for one network versus the other, because people's intent are different on different networks. Some people have a lot of intent on the search network because they're looking for something, and then on the display network they're just kind of browsing an article or looking at the weather, and they could be coming across your ads when they really shouldn't be. Look at your copy, your ad copy. You know, like I said, you should have multiple variations of it running. So see which is performing better from not only a click-through standpoint. I mean, that's a huge metric to look at, but look at your conversion, you know, volumes and your conversion rates as well, because, you know, that's ultimately, you know, the most important metric if you're tracking it is how you're converting. Extension optimization, you can't really run a lot of testing with the extensions, like A/B, side-by-side testing like you really could with ads, but you can still try new ones out and see if those either get more clicks or your ad itself gets a higher CTR with that extension visible. Like some extensions are kind of weird. Site links, I find a lot of people don't really even click the site link, but it still gives another layer and more depth to your ad. They're still probably more likely to click the headline, but you'll get a higher click-through rate with those available. Bid adjustments. So if you do identify either that mobile's not really working for you, maybe your site is really not mobile friendly, it's not giving people a good user experience, you may want to back your mobile bids down. Some people may want to, you know I have clients who it's zero. We don't market on mobile at all. So we've taken their bid adjustment all the way down to zero and eliminated mobile. But for the most of our clients, we're up. We're bidding up with mobile bid adjustments because that's where their target audience is, and it gives them a better position. It gives them more visibility. So it's as simple as the example here on the screen is going to settings and devices, and you can increase that. And then the on-page metrics. So looking at those and identifying, like, maybe you have a really high bounce rate on mobile, or you know, you have a very low time on site on mobile devices. It may, you know, give you some insight into maybe you need to try a different landing page as your landing page for mobile. Maybe you need to create a mobile, like I would call it a mobile preferred landing page. You know, roll out another copy of your landing page, and then maybe trim off some of the information on there so that you're either you know, streamlining the flow, or, you know, maybe you're giving them too much information on a mobile device. You want to kind of tailor it down a little bit. So there's just some ideas for optimizing for better performance.
Awesome. That was a lot of great info. I have a question related to sort of what you were talking about at the end there. So you mentioned that a lot of your clients are bidding up on mobile, but you do have some where, you know, you're not prioritizing mobile, found that it doesn't work well for them. How do you, I guess, what is the process? And I know it can be different for different clients, but overall, like, what does that process look like when you're determining, okay, is mobile right for this client? Is it not right? You know, how do you decide that, okay, we shouldn't be on mobile at all?
Right. And it is different. It varies greatly from client to client. I mean, first off, you know, if their website is going to provide a poor user experience for people on mobile devices, then there's no sense in investing the budget. You know, we'd rather repurpose that budget into something else. But, you know, for the clients that we are increasing their budgets, or their bids, I should say, for mobile, is that, you know, they're converting, obviously. You know, they have a good conversion rate, or we find that this client has, you know, a lot of cross-device activity, where we know that their target audience is starting out on phones and then finishing on a desktop. But if we're not there on that first search when they pick that phone up, you know, we're probably not going to be there at the end when they convert off of their desktop. So it really varies, but really, you know, sitting down and talking with your clients and understanding, like, their goals and objectives, who their target audience is, you know, their products and services. Is this something that people are going to go to their mobile device for? And in some cases, they just don't. They just don't, you know, go to their mobile device for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so then I think. So, okay, let's say that I have a customer who find that my mobile conversion rate is poorer than it is on, you know, desktop and tablets. You know, what would you begin recommending there? Is it to start looking into like those cross-device conversions rather than just you know, the converted clicks? Are there other things I should be looking at, or is it just sort of like my conversion rate's lower, then mobile's not for me?
Right, right. I would definitely start looking into the cross-device, because if you just jump the gun and you know, stop marketing on mobile or reducing your bids, then you might shoot yourself in the foot. So I would definitely start looking at the cross-device stuff, and then from there, you know, I would definitely start looking at landing page performance. If you're trying to troubleshoot a lower conversion rate on mobile devices, and you find that, you know, people are just bailing from the mobile experience, then you've got to obviously figure out why. Was your ad copy misleading? Did you take them to the wrong landing page? Did the website provide a poor user experience? You know, is your checkout process on a mobile device just like, you know, clunky and hard to navigate? You know, things along those lines. So you just have to kind of, you know, we have like a, you know, a mental checklist of what you're going to start looking at to try to troubleshoot that problem, especially if you see, you know, you've got a high click-through rate and a low conversion rate. You know, I'll see that sometimes, where we'll see a higher click-through rate on mobile devices than desktops, and then a lower conversion rate, and that kind of can leave you scratching your head like, why is that?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it can be misleading as well, because I often see that higher click-through rate on mobile, but I do think part of it is also, like we talked about, the mobile screen is so small that if there are only a couple of ads showing on mobile, there's less competition in some ways, because there's only so many results for people to choose from. But then, of course, that also means you really need to be like on that first page near the top if you can be. Well,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Kim. This is really great. And everyone else, if you're watching and you have questions later on, go ahead and post those in the community. We have the events page where this video is going to live. You'll be able to come back, watch it again, and comment below, and we'll be responding to your questions there too. Thanks so much, Kim.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right. Bye, everyone.